Welcome to Nasdaq TradeTalks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us at the MarketSite studio in Times Square, New York City, we have Haydar Haba, founder and managing partner at Andra Capital. We also have Kathy Park, partner at Andra Capital. We're going to discuss getting into private tech companies before they IPO and the value of mentor-mentee relationships. Haydar and Kathy, it's great to see you. Welcome to Trade Talks. And Haydar, I want to kick this off with you. What are some of the challenges everyday investors experience breaking into the tech space, and what is Andra doing to break down those barriers?
Yeah, thank you for having me here. Normally, this is a $2 to $3 trillion asset class, which is a pre-IPO tech. It's impossible for an average investor to get into these investments because they're pretty much privately closed cap tables. These are companies that we normally use and we love, but we don't have access to them. And Andra, we decided to democratize this asset class and make it available to average investor by providing this kind of funds available on alternative investment platforms such as TD, Ameritrade, Schwab's, and bunch of international banking systems.
How can investors get in on the ground floor of these exciting tech companies without having to access them through an IPO?
Yeah, so there's several ways to do it, either through co-investment vehicles that we provide, so they can come on a deal-by-deal basis into some of these great firms, but you have to be a qualified investor to be able to access them because these are the SEC rules, or they can come into the fund, which is a combination of these assets that we underwrite and provide into one fund that will give you the liquidity. And additional to that, it gives you the coverage for about 20 of these companies at a time.
And Kathy, I want you to follow up on this as well,
Yeah.
but Haydar, how will AI affect the markets, and what may we see in the next couple of years as it relates to that?
That's a great question. We believe AI is going to be at the core of every tech, whether it has it today or they're going to have to build the engine around these digital wrappers. It's going to be at the core of cybersecurity, big data, fintech, and all kinds of verticals you see today. And what I call, we're entering the second tech revolution right now, with singularity being the aim. What used to be science fiction is reality now, and AI is very real. And if you don't adapt it within your firms, you're going to be left out. Yeah. So it's really important that every tech company, whether it's existing or a new kind of verticals, they all focus on how they can leverage AI to make it better, faster.
Yeah, I think even just in terms of the percentage of jobs that are going to be impacted by AI. I think Goldman recently put out a research report basically saying that 28% of jobs could be impacted in some way by AI. And so when you think about the impact on the labor markets, this is really something that will have pretty fundamental shifts in terms of how we think about basic job functions and even where the value in the value chain in terms of economics really lies going forward versus what has historically been the case today.
And Haydar, how is the U.S. dollar, the declining global influence of the U.S. dollar impacting trade?
Yeah, so with the declining dollar, it's really the trade happens is because if you got lower value of the dollar, it increases our ability to really get goods at lower cost into the U.S., right? So we can export more, and at the same time, the problem with de-dollarization, if you look at the last year and a half, the dollar was really strong and started affecting a lot of economies around the world. And now it's trying to, it's pulling back because of the situation with our budget and the increase of interest rate. It's really decreasing the value of the dollar. And it's going to impact trade. Normally is very stable. I think it's going to normalize right now because interest rate we're at the peak of it, I believe. And with the Feds really pulling off, hopefully towards the end of the year, is going to stabilize the situation we're in.
And Kathy, let's switch gears and talk about the mentor-mentee relationship here. What's the importance of having a mentor, particularly when you're starting out and especially if you're a minority?
Sure, I mean, the mentor-mentee relationship is incredibly important in terms of helping people navigate environments, especially when you're first starting out, whether it's in the workforce or even just in a career or making a transition. And so having someone who has the experience and can help you figure out your blind spots is incredibly helpful and important. And furthermore, especially as we focus more increasingly on diversity and inclusion initiatives, we need to help people, if there aren't a lot of role models that already exist for individuals, just helping them find people that can be mentors, sponsors as well, to help those individuals in particular find an appropriate glide path in terms of their career.
So what are some strategies for young professionals to attain and retain the mentor-mentee relationship?
So a lot of it is just being proactive, and the advice we typically give, and Haydar, you can give the same advice, but it's really trying to find people that you can relate to, and who you feel like you have something to learn from. But then more importantly, as a mentee, it's also important, it should be a two-way street. So to the extent that you can provide insights to a more senior individual, or you can provide them with a different perspective, that's really important. And then also just being proactive and reaching back out to that person. You shouldn't sit and wait for your mentor to call you. You should be reaching out to them and trying to make sure that you stay in front of them.
How has diversity transformed the way that organizations approach mentorships?
Oh, it's been very important in terms of, I think, the thinking that people have now. So historically, this was just more of a grassroots effort, and now there are more formal programs, whether that's formal networking programs, formal mentorship programs that are sponsored by companies, and also companies have started to realize this is an incredibly powerful way to both recruit and retain really exceptional minority candidates. And so there's been a lot more focus, and I would say a lot of both resources that are just being allocated to this sort of initiative.
And Haydar, how does Andra approach it? Because your particular industry, the niche that you serve in the space, it does have a high barrier to entry. It is not easy just to get into private money and VC and fundraising.
Yeah, so we approach in terms of mentorship, is that
yeah,
right?
mentorship,
so
diversity and
we
inclusion.
hire a lot of people that are young graduates out of adjacent schools like Berkeley and Stanford and even smaller colleges, where we mentor them, educate them on how to do proper investing. We take them through a full education summer kind of internships. To learn the business, get them excited about investment in tech, and see if there is room for us to keep some of these. And even the ones we don't keep, they can go back to their countries or back to the system here in the U.S. and be able to interact professionally within the environment, specifically coming out of Silicon Valley and the way we do investment.
Appreciate the insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. And thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.